I'm Grace Harper, 34, former Army intel officer, and yesterday my own brother called me a criminal on live TV. Pause a beat, feel that twist in your gut. Keep it, because this story climbs from betrayal to a courtroom explosion no thriller writer could fake. Before we dive into classified-level family treachery, do me one favor, hit subscribe, pound that like, and drop a comment if you've ever felt underestimated by the people who should have had your back. This channel is where broken trust meets poetic justice, and I promise, the payoff here is worth every second. I used to think the shrapnel that lodged in my shoulder outside Fallujah would be the sharpest pain I'd ever know. Turns out a signature my father's, no less, can slice deeper than hot metal. This morning, fluorescent bulbs hiss over my head inside a federal courtroom in Washington, D.C. My ribbon rack glints. My parents refuse to look at it. Or me. Mason, little brother turned fintech golden boy, adjusts his designer cufflinks and addresses the judge. Your Honor, my sister leveraged her rank to seize our parents' home and their retirement. His voice is ice-chip calm, like he's pitching angel investors, not detonating our family. Beside him, his wife, Dr. Eva Collins Harper, presses a tissue to one perfectly quivering eyelash. I smell her perfume from here, jasmine over formaldehyde. The bailiff asks if I'd like to respond. I shake my head. Silence can be a shield. Let them mistake stillness for surrender. Richmond, Virginia, 1997. Suburban humidity. Lawnmower buzz. 7-year-old Mason chasing grass clippings while I aged 9 stuff crumpled dollars into a coffee tin. We're buying Dad a Veterans Day ball cap. He called us my 2 cadets, and we beamed like patches on parade. Fast forward to 2018. I'm stateside between deployments. Medals piling up faster than birthdays. Mason's startup, Atlas Ledger, flames out after one ugly hacking scandal. I wire him 50 grand combat pay I'd planned to park in index funds. He texts a single emoji. Mom said I was too intense about security clearances. Dad joked I should learn to relax. You're home, soldier. So I tried. I bought them a new roof, refinanced at a fixed rate that should have set them up for life. Then last month arrived an ivory envelope heavy as guilt. Inside a civil suit alleging elder financial abuse. My parents' signatures. Notarized. They're suing me, with Mason listed as power of attorney. I confronted them in the kitchen where we once baked birthday brownies. Mom's knuckles were white around a bottle of opioid painkillers she insists are just for Dad's back. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes, muttering something about trusting Mason with the paperwork. When I asked why my name vanished from the deed, Mom whispered, "Sweetheart, you're hardly ever here." The crack I didn't hear then, and you might not either, was the moment a family splinters beyond repair. News travels faster than small-town gossip in the digital age. By morning, local stations run the headline. Decorated veteran, accused of defrauding parents. Calls from former platoon mates stop. My commanding officer temporarily suspends my contractor badge, can't risk negative optics. Grocery runs turn covert. Toddlers in shopping carts stare at the stern woman on the tabloid rack. At 02:14 a.m., an email pings, Veteran Relief Enrollment, confirmed funds, disbursed. I never applied. I open the attachment, someone used my social security number. Deployment history. Even my Bronze Star citation. To draw federal aid into an account ending in 9137, not mine. Cold adrenaline floods my limbs. Same as Iraq dust storms. I lock every door twice, then a third time. Because here's what the headlines miss. Identity theft isn't about money. It's about erasing a life cell by cell until there's nothing left to bury. I drive across the Potomac to a strip mall boxing gym that never sleeps. Waiting inside is Samuel Sam Brooks, ex-FBI cyber agent turned night shift trainer, the only man who ever outsparred me. He hands me a burner phone. Heard your name in places it shouldn't echo, he says. You want to help or lecture, I ask, wrapping my bruised knuckles. Depends. He smirks. You ready to find out how deep your brother's rabbit hole goes? The heavy bag swings between us like a ticking metronome. I take aim. 1 strike. 2. The leather sings, and my pulse steadies. Strategy is oxygen. Revenge. A distant drum, for now. Next episode, we descend that rabbit hole where stolen veteran files meet foreign money, and the Harper family name becomes a weapon of mass destruction. Sam and I work out of his boxing gym office because neon lights and the smell of canvas are less traceable than government conference rooms. He props an aging laptop on a speed bag rack, and the first file he drags across the screen is a spreadsheet of Atlas Ledger micro wallets, hundreds of $25 transfers, timed to hit just below federal reporting thresholds. I scroll. Each sender is a veteran I recognize from deployments or after-action briefings. Some are dead. Many are alive and clueless. Cross-referencing with the Department of Veterans Affairs portal through a back door, Sam still knows. We find forged consent forms all notarized by the same mobile agent who, shockingly, doesn't exist in Virginia licensing records. My stomach knots in that old pre-ambush way, because forged consent plus micro-wallets equals bulk identity harvesting. And bulk identity harvesting only makes sense if someone is either laundering cash or selling dossiers to an external buyer. Sam taps a line that routes money to Luxembourg, then to a shell incorporated in the Cayman's Frontier Capital Holdings. Atlas Ledger lists this as global liquidity management. But Frontier was flagged by a Senate subcommittee in 2017 for funneling ransom payments to a threat actor tied to Iranian cyber espionage. I flew drone overwatch on that task force. The pattern is burned into my memory. Mason didn't just steal from Mom and Dad, he built an interstate pipeline straight into national security quicksand. Sam asks if I'm sure I want to keep digging. I answer by plugging in my own encrypted thumb drive, pulling up the timeline of Mason's keynote at the Veteran Startup Expo last May. The Expo's Wi-Fi logs show a suspicious device beaconing to the same Luxembourg server while Mason was on stage accepting his award from Senator Olmsted. If that signal is Mason's phone, we've got location-based evidence of active data exfiltration. And if the Senate Ethics Office ever learns Olmsted's staff vouched for Atlas Ledger, political fallout could be nuclear. Sam exhales, clicks save, and tells me to find a second set of eyes before we risk chain of custody loopholes. That's when I call Ana Rodriguez, the DHS cyber investigator who once hauled me out of a Kabul server room seconds before it exploded. I send her a single line, need quiet review of domestic breach tied to foreign intel. Can't trust normal channels. She responds with GPS coordinates to a Safeway parking lot and the code phrase, orange juice at midnight. I leave the gym, hoodie up, adrenaline steady, because the deeper we go, the more certain I am that silence was never surrender. It was simply me unsheathing the blade, and the next cut is coming. Midnight finds me leaning against a shopping cart full of nothing but orange juice, while fluorescent aisle lights flicker overhead. Anna slides up beside me in civilian jeans and a Nationals cap, looking like someone browsing coupons, and hands me a burner USB shaped like a novelty hot dog keychain. Inside it is a script that will scrape every Atlas Ledger endpoint for hidden APIs without tripping alarms. Run it once, she whispers, then ghosts the laptop while she talks. Her gaze holds an exit sign's reflection because she knows micro-expressions get caught on cameras. She also knows if Atlas's dev team notices the intrusion, they'll call their crisis management firm, and within hours, every rogue server log will vanish. I nod, stash the USB in a cereal box, and ask the question that's been drilling into my skull. Why hasn't DHS moved already if Frontier Capital is back in play? Anna keeps scanning shelves and replies that without irrefutable links to U.S. ESS persons, the case stalls under jurisdiction ping-pong. Mason is the missing link. and my evidence is the bridge if I get it before he senses we're closing in. She steps away with a parting shot. Frontier once paid 6 figures for a single cleared identity. Imagine what they'll pay for hundreds. The automatic doors swish shut behind her, leaving me in canned music silence so thick my heart sinks to it. On my phone, a news alert lights up. Eva's clinic just announced a lucrative partnership with a telehealth startup specializing in PTSD treatment. They will soon have real-time access to veteran therapy sessions, fresh data for the farm. I tighten my grip on the cart handle until plastic creaks. Because every second we delay, another soldier's life becomes a bargaining chip, and my brother is flipping them like poker tokens. Over the next 6 weeks, I run the hot dog USB from library terminals at odd hours, cloning Atlas's back-end ledgers into air-gapped drives. Patterns emerge whenever Atlas siphons a new relief payment. Eva's clinic files a matching pro bono counseling entry, and within 48 hours, a Luxembourg transfer fires. Sam tracks IP pings from Eva's billing software to a townhouse in Alexandria. Atlas's clandestine data bunker. Meanwhile, I keep calling Mom, leaving voicemails she never returns, until Dad finally answers late one Sunday. His voice is grainy, medicated. He says Mason promised the lawsuit would protect the family from Grace's PTSD rage. I swallow hard, hear my own pulse fill the line, and ask if Dad truly believes I could hurt them. There's a pause heavy enough to bend steel. Then he whispers that the court date has been moved up to February 26th, and Mason swears it will be the day everything comes out. I thank Dad, hang up, and let the phone slide from numb fingers. Mason knows I'm digging. He's accelerating. The only counterpunch is to force federal eyes on him before that courtroom becomes an execution ground for my reputation. Sam suggests we leak sanitized intel to a journalist who can keep the story alive if Atlas tries to bury us. One name fits: Noah Bennett at Capitol Watch, the most relentless investigative reporter in D.C. I draft a message with just 3 sentences: if you want the scoop of your career, follow the money inside Atlas Ledger. Veterans are the collateral. I can prove it. I attach one redacted ledger page, Owen Patel's stolen file, and hit send. As the email whooshes away, a thunderstorm cracks above the Potomac. Power flickers, and for half a heartbeat, the room plunges into darkness. When lights return, my reflection in the black monitor looks like a stranger wearing my scars. Yet, I've never felt more myself. Because tomorrow, Noah will call, and the next door will open. And once it does, none of us, least of all Mason, can turn back. Noah Bennett rings at dawn, his voice low like he's speaking from a church confessional. And within 3 minutes, he's mapped our story arc. Atlas Ledger. Fake relief payments. Luxembourg. Senator Olmsted. He wants proof that sings on paper and bleeds on camera. Something even network executives can't water down. So I promise him an exclusive interview the night before the hearing if he agrees to sit on the story until I say go. And he answers with the sweetest word in investigative journalism deal, just as lightning peels open the horizon, reminding me the clock is now a fuse, and every second hisses louder than the last. Sam and I spend the next 48 hours engineering a data breach. We can survive. He crafts a worm that will mirror Atlas's servers to a hidden AWS vault while masking the intrusion as a routine health check ping. I refine the chain of custody log so that every keystroke stamps my biometric token, making the evidence admissible even under the meanest cross-examination. But the real coup comes when Anna screens the packet and texts one word: credible, meaning DHS Cyber will issue an emergency subpoena the moment we surface the ledger, which means Mason's timeline just evaporated, and he has no idea the tide already turned beneath his feet. Meanwhile, Eva's clinic launches its telehealth pilot, live streaming group therapy sessions under the slogan, Healing Our Heroes. And watching her promo reel feels like chewing glass because I recognize 2 Marines on screen. One saved my life near Ramadi. The other lost his to an IED a month later. Yet Eva scrolls their files on a tablet like product listings. And I taste bile when I realize she's harvesting real-time trauma to upsell anonymized metadata to Frontier. A betrayal so intimate, it eclipses Mason's greed and pulls my mission out of revenge and into the territory of moral imperative. The kind that hardens resolve into steel and dares anyone to break it. Noah's first request is a face to humanize the crime. So I drive Owen Patel to a recording studio tucked behind a college radio station where anonymity is currency. Owen grips his carbon fiber prosthetic as if tightening a tourniquet on old memories. Yet when the camera rolls, he stares straight through the lens and says, "They stole my name to finance their mansion. I just wanted to walk again." And the raw honesty in his voice makes the crew go silent, which is precisely the soundbite Noah needs to keep the network's lawyers at bay and the public's outrage simmering until we hit full boil. That night, Mason texts me a single YouTube link, him on a podcast, laughing about toxic heroes who play victim. And for the first time since this began, I feel genuine heat flood my veins. But behind the rage, there's clarity. Mason is overconfident, broadcasting while we inbound. So I feed his ego by replying, "See you in court, little brother," knowing he'll assume I'm out of moves. While Anna finalizes a sealed warrant, allowing DHS to mirror Mason's phone the moment he crosses courthouse Wi-Fi. A digital bear trap hidden beneath the marble floor, he'll strut across in Italian loafers. 5 days before the hearing, Senator Olmsted schedules a ribbon cutting at a veteran tech incubator. Clearly unaware his star entrepreneur is radioactive, Noah insists we stage a soft leak to force Olmsted's hand without spooking Mason. So we drop an anonymous dossier to the senator's chief of staff containing 3 sanitized ledger entries. And 24 hours later, Olmsted's office releases a vague statement about reevaluating partnerships, which sets Twitter on fire but, more importantly, prompts Atlas stockholders to demand an emergency board meeting a perfect distraction because panic in the boardroom will keep Mason glued to damage control while we raid his data bunker. Sam and I hit the Alexandria townhouse at 03:12 a.m. under the guise of a power grid maintenance alert he spoofed into the smart home panel. Once inside, rows of server towers hum like dormant wasps, their LED eyes blinking suspiciously slow. And I feel that old battlefield hush, where even breathing feels like trespass. But we work fast. I clone the drives. Sam plants a watchdog script that will auto-notify DHS if anyone wipes logs. And before slipping out, I tuck a single photo of our childhood dog into Mason's desk drawer, not as sentiment, but as a warning that I've been here. I've seen everything, and I am not afraid to come closer. At dawn, Anna emails a compliance receipt confirming Frontier Capital's Luxembourg node just pinged Atlas for a mass upload request, but was denied by our watchdog, meaning Mason knows someone breached him, yet can't trace who. And that paranoia is priceless. By noon, his legal team files a motion to delay the civil suit due to unforeseen data irregularities, which Judge Whitfield rejects in a single-sentence order, locking February 26th in granite and forcing Mason onto a stage he can't cancel. And I picture him pacing expensive hardwood floors, realizing the trap is tightening with each breath he takes. Noah schedules our pre-hearing interview for the 25th, and the network demands hair and makeup. But I refuse foundation covering the scar on my shoulder because that fragment of Fallujah steel is the reason I fight. So the producer shrugs and dims a key light. And when cameras roll, I recount the entire timeline, reserving one bombshell, the Luxembourg espionage link, for live court record. A decision that leaves Noah wide-eyed but trusting. He ends the segment with, "Tomorrow, the truth walks into federal court." And those words trend by nightfall, drawing eyeballs like moths to a fuse box about to spark. Hours before sunrise on hearing day, an unmarked envelope slides under my apartment door. Inside lies a single Polaroid of Mom weeping at the kitchen table. A post-it scrawled, "You could still stop this." I stare at the shaky handwriting Dad's, and grief punches through my sternum. Yet beneath the ache, I taste resolve sharper than military steel. Because protecting the innocent sometimes means exposing the complicit. And when the sun finally breaks over the Potomac, painting the river the color of a fresh bruise, I button my dress blues and head for the courthouse, knowing the next door I open will either ruin me forever or carve a path the whole country can follow. And that uncertainty feels like the deepest breath before a sniper's squeeze. ChatGPT said the marble steps of the E. Barrett Prettyman Courthouse gleam like a sterilized operating table when I arrive at 0700 dress blues razor pressed, metals muting sunrise into splinters of bronze and silver. Reporters swarm, but the bailiff hustles me through a service entrance where Anna waits in plain clothes, Bluetooth mic curled behind one ear, and she whispers that Mason's phone just latched onto the building Wi-Fi. The Mirror app is ingesting gigabytes per minute, and if he so much as texts a lawyer, the entire conversation will tattoo itself onto DHS servers' information that makes my pulse settle into the focused lull I used to feel right before breaching a door in Fallujah. The hush that tells you danger is near, yet every variable finally sits inside your sights. Courtroom 21B is colder than memory. Fluorescent tubes buzz overhead, while Judge Whitfield reviews binders thicker than body armor. And I sense Mason before I see him. Cologne and arrogance drifting ahead of Italian leather shoes. Eva clutching his arm with fingers manicured into perfect crescents. Mom behind them, visibly trembling. Dad propped against a cane he doesn't need whenever cameras aren't around. Then Noah catches my eye from the press box, gives a micro nod confirming his crew is live streaming to 2 million viewers who expect blood or redemption. And I inhale slowly because what comes next will decide which they get. My turn comes, and I rise without theatrics, stride to the clerk, and hand over one manila envelope containing a single sheet of paper, no speech, just chain of custody signatures, SHA 256 hash, GPS stamps, and the Luxembourg transfer log mapping Atlas Ledger to Frontier Capital. Whitfield scans it, skin blanched beneath courtroom lighting, then looks up and orders the doors sealed, cameras off, gallery silent, her gavel cracking like distant artillery as she cites Title 18, Section 1831, economic espionage words that detonate across the wooden benches, freezing Eva mid-sob and snapping Mason's jaw shut so violently I hear his molars grind. 2 U.S. Marshals slip in through side doors, while an FBI Cyber Task Force pair appears by the rear exit, badges glinting, and Anna, suddenly visible near the prosecution table, taps her phone to confirm the mirrored data packet is authenticated. Whitfield addresses Mason directly, informing him that probable cause now exists for his immediate detention on charges of identity theft, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit espionage. And as the first cuff clicks around his wrist, he lurches toward our parents, hissing that he did it for the family. But Dad recoils, horror eclipsing whatever script Mason fed him, while Mom's tissue drops unnoticed to the floor, leaving her hands empty and shaking. Eva tries to stand, perhaps to flee or plead, yet a marshal blocks the aisle and reads her Miranda rights with clinical precision. I watch her shoulders sag when she realizes the clinic's patient data feed, once her golden goose, is the very time-stamped evidence looping on an agent's tablet. And in that instant, the perfume of victory feels strangely hollow, because I never wanted my revenge to taste like antiseptic and cold metal, only for truth to weigh more than lies. But the heaviness in my chest tells me that even righteous winds can bruise where no one sees. Judge Whitfield instructs the clerk to enter my ledger document into sealed record, schedules a federal arraignment for Mason and Eva within 48 hours, then turns to me with a steadiness that feels almost maternal and states, "Major Harper, Your motion for injunction against further civil proceedings is granted. Words that lift a burden I'd carried since the day that ivory envelope arrived. Yet before relief can register, she adds, however, your parents retain standing. They may refile after criminal matters conclude. And her gavel falls again, splitting my momentary calm, because I realize the next battlefield may still be domestic and emotional. Outside, flashbulbs ignite like tracer rounds as marshals escort Mason and Eva in chains. Noah's microphone catching every shouted question, but the crowd parts when Owen Patel steps forward on his prosthetic, saluting me with 2 fingers to his brow, and reporters swing lenses toward him just as he declares, "She saved more than my name, she saved my life." A statement that ricochets off marble columns louder than any headline. Yet, before I can respond, Anna grabs my elbow and murmurs that DHS intercepted an encrypted message from Frontier pledging asset retrieval at all costs, meaning somewhere in this sea of spectators' eyes may already be sizing me for silence. And the war I thought ended in this courtroom might only have shifted theaters. We clear the courthouse through a service corridor while marshals decoy cameras out front. Yet adrenaline keeps my peripheral vision blazing. Every reflection in polished brass could hide a lens. Every puff coat could cloak a sidearm. And Anna's warning about Frontier's asset retrieval replays in my skull like a faulty safety switch. Sam drives us in a rust-red pickup with plates registered to an alias. Owen wedged in back beside a duffel of cloned hard drives. And when we finally merge onto I-395, the Washington Monument shrinks behind us. But my pulse refuses to downshift because victory painted a target on my spine, and the next shot could come from anywhere. 48 hours later, we watch Mason and Eva's arraignment livestream from Sam's gym office. The smell of pine tar and sweat somehow grounding. Prosecutors cite 18 counts, wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy under the Economic Espionage Act, while Mason's cuffed hands twitch each time the judge says maximum penalty. Yet the real blow lands when the clerk announces bail denied due to foreign flight risk. A phrase that wipes the last veneer of composure from my brother's face. But the moment that sears my brain is Eva turning toward him, eyes flat, mouthing "you promised." Because in that split second, I grasp how betrayal is fractal. It fractures, then keeps fracturing. The story detonates across networks. Senator Olmstead scrambles to distance himself. Veterans groups flood Capitol Hill. And 3 weeks later, the Grace Harper Act passes with bipartisan speed, mandating encrypted ID tokens for all military benefits. Noah's segment goes viral. Yet he opts to redirect ad revenue into a legal aid fund for fraud victims, proving some journalists still chase justice over clicks. And his gesture sparks the final piece of my plan, transforming our ad hoc task force into the nonprofit Sentinel Foundation, with Sam architecting cyber defenses, Anna formalizing federal liaisons, Owen vetting callers as peer advocate, and me answering midnight emails from strangers whose lives suddenly look too much like mine. Each plea a reminder that the wound we exposed runs nationwide, and our fight has only just drafted new soldiers. Late July. I attend Mason's sentencing. Mom sits 2 rows behind, clutching a rosary she never used when I deployed. Dad beside her staring somewhere no one else can see. The judge renders 22 years for Mason, 15 for Eva, then opens the floor for victim statements. I step forward in dress blues that feel lighter than they did that first day, and I speak not of anger, but of names 327 veterans whose stolen identities ripple through sealed exhibits. Yet when I finish, I look at my parents and say only, "The door home is still unlocked if you ever choose truth over silence." An olive branch wrapped in barbed wire. And I leave without waiting for their answer, because some reconciliations require time. neither side can yet measure. August heat hangs over Arlington when a plain envelope arrives. No return address, containing a single flash drive and a note. Frontier server closed. Debt paid. Sam runs the metadata server wiped. Offshore nodes dormant. Bounty on my head apparently rescinded, but the drive also holds a spreadsheet of 800 more compromised veteran IDs. Evidence Frontier never sent to market. And the implication is clear. Someone inside the beast decided to amputate the infected limb rather than face the firestorm we lit. Victory. Yes, yet the data means 800 fresh files to secure. And while fatigue curls at the edges of my thoughts, something fiercer stands guard behind it. Because this war doesn't end with surrender. It ends when every stolen name is returned. And maybe not even then. I film a closing message on the Sentinel office roof as thunderheads roll over the Potomac. Cicadas drone, city lights blink awake, and camera red lights steady. I speak if betrayal ever branded you. If silence ever strangled your truth, know that a rank, a badge, or a lawsuit doesn't decide your worth, you do. My family tried to erase me, but the erasers smudged their own fingerprints, and the world saw the stains. If this story steadied your heartbeat, share it. Speak up, stand guard over your own name, and if you stumble, we're here. Watchful as sentinels on the wall, I pause, letting dusk swallow the skyline, and promise one more chapter soon, because every night, new emails ping the Sentinel inbox, and somewhere out there, another fuse has already started to hiss. My name is Rebecca Beck Cole, 36, and I still remember the exact weight of betrayal, 128 grams, the heft of a forged retirement packet soaking in hospital rainwater, while my father's SUV slid away in silence. 3 hours earlier, I'd been wheeled out of surgery at Walter Reed. Spine stitched with titanium after the Kandahar disaster, the news never covered. I should have been relieved to breathe. Instead, a corporal handed me an envelope stamped Retirement Medical. The signature at the bottom wasn't mine. It was Lieutenant General Richard Cole's, my father, ink still glistening like fresh blood. My pulse spiked. Morphine couldn't dull that pain. I hobbled on crutches through the storm, heart-pounding war drum rhythms against bandages, desperate to catch the taillights of the family that had just disowned me with paperwork. Inside the car, Dad's face appeared behind a half-lowered window, stone-carved, unflinching. "This is Mercy, Beck," he said, voice clipped like a dress uniform crease. "Heroes follow orders. You broke rank." Then the glass slid up, severing decades of daughterhood in a single mechanical shrug. The packet slipped from my fingers, splashed, and bled ink into the puddle. Thunder swallowed my scream. Right there, soaked and trembling. I realized war wounds heal faster than family scars, and that someday, somehow, I would make him face the damage he'd done. He called it mercy. Wait until you see what mercy costs. Swipe forward 18 months of rehab and insomnia. Mom. Elizabeth Moore Cole sat at my bedside each dawn, coaxing me to finish MITx cybersecurity modules between bouts of physical therapy. She whispered a mantra every time surgical pain spiked. Courage isn't pulling the trigger. B. It's standing steady while someone aims at you. Those words became code loops in my head while I wrote the first lines of Sentinel. A firewall I swore would guard soldiers better than commanders ever guarded me. But the night her cancer finally silenced that voice. Dad never came, at the funeral. The flag over her casket felt heavier than any coffin. My brother Jason polished his new flight wing badge while reporters filmed. And Meredith, the PR perfect stepmother, posed for sympathy photos. I stood one row back, invisible by design. When taps faded, Harper Lynn, Mom's lawyer, pressed a sealed envelope into my palm and mouthed, "Not now, read when you're ready." That envelope held a secret my father prayed would stay buried. Grief mutated into code. 2019 Sentinel Cyber Defense was born in Avery Chen's cluttered garage outside D.C. She was 22, caffeine-wired, blacklist-level brilliant, exactly the kind of ally a ghost soldier needs, while Cerberus and Chimera, our AI gatekeepers, gnawed at every exploit on the web. I learned to sleep 4 hours and dream none. We stayed invisible shell company. Layers of NDAs. My name scrubbed from every slide deck. Not for pride survival. Dad still sat on Pentagon councils. Any whiff of Major Beck coal could nuke our funding before first contact. By early 2025, Sentinel was on the cusp of full DoD adoption. Championed by retired 4-star General Samuel Huxley, the same man who'd watched me drag a bleeding child through Taliban crossfire, while radio static screamed, "Fall back." He'd never forgotten what I did or what it cost. He saw past Dad's polished lies. The final demo sat 1 month away when the first torpedo hit. An anonymous leak splashed across mill blogs. Major Cole abandoned her post, "Lives Lost." The attached redacted report painted me a coward, lining up perfectly with that forged retirement order from years ago. Comment sections exploded, court-martial her, strip her clearance, ban her company. I read the thread alone by the Anacostia River. Fireworks from a museum gala thudding overhead like mortar rounds. Hands shaking. I flicked through photos of my once-earned medals. Thumb hovering over the delete icon, erase myself before the world finished the job. Just then, Avery's ID flashed on screen. Metadata proves forgery stub. AC override legacy 64. That's your dad's admin tool. He's behind the leak. Beck. The world tilted. Dad hadn't just buried my career. He was prepared to salt the earth so nothing could ever grow from it. My lungs burned with twin flames, rage and resolve hotter than any Afghan desert. I straightened, pocketed the phone, and turned toward the Pentagon lights gleaming across the water like a challenge. Tomorrow at 11:00 a.m. I would walk through those doors, not as a disgraced ghost, but as a ticking truth nobody could ignore. They thought they'd written my final sentence. I was just sharpening the pen. I limped through the Pentagon security gauntlet at 10:57 retina scan, metal detector, scent of floor polish and distant coffee burning on warming plates. My badge beeped amber instead of green. A petty reminder that my clearance was under review. An aide in crisp blues ushered me toward hearing room 4B, narrow corridor. Portraits of metal-heavy legends staring down like silent judges. Inside waited a semicircle of career bureaucrats, one Navy captain's stenographer, and, parked in the far corner like a gargoyle, Lieutenant General Richard Cole. Our eyes locked his, icy and unyielding. Mine, freshly sharpened. The chairwoman cleared her throat. "Major Cole, we've received disturbing allegations regarding Operation Spearpoint and your subsequent discharge. Do you wish to make a statement?" She expected an apology, maybe tears. Instead, I set a slim drive on the table, Sentinel encrypted, time-stamped, metadata intact, then a hard copy of Madison Reyes's original letter. Photo cells shimmering under fluorescent light. I have evidence of document forgery, chain of command tampering, and defamation executed by someone with Joint Chiefs level access, I said, never blinking at Dad. The room inhaled as one. The captain slid my files toward the tech officer. Screens flickered alive, line by line. Reyes's handwriting filled the monitors. She saved the child. She saved me. A visible shiver rippled through the panel. Even stone walls can feel truth when it bleeds. Dad shifted, fingers tapping a silent Morse SOS on the armrest. He opened his mouth, no sound. The chairwoman turned General Cole. "Did you ever authorize or distribute this redacted report?" He toggled to lawyer mode. "My office handles thousands of files. Any staffer could, before he could finish." The tech officer enlarged the digital footprint. AC override legacy, his unique login stub. Gasps muffled against hands. Reputation armor cracked loud as gunfire. I almost pitied him. Almost. The chairwoman's gavel struck. An independent inquiry is hereby convened. Until resolved. General Cole's clearances are suspended. His face blanched the exact color of betrayal served cold. Yet my victory tasted fleeting because inquiries move slow. And I needed something irreversible. Outside, General Huxley waited like a sentinel carved from service ribbon steel. Not bad for round one, he growled, guiding me toward an elevator reserved for flag officers. Doors closed, only fluorescent hum and heartbeats. Huxley handed me a folded note coordinates, a single timestamp, and 2 initials VS. Sergeant Victor Salinas keeps the Army Archive at Fort Belvoir. Code 9F. Madison's backup breadcrumbs point there. If your father buried anything else. It's behind that door. The elevator dinged. He was gone before the doors fully opened, leaving the scent of dust-old leather and battlefield memory. I pocketed the note, pulse already sinking to a new mission clock. Hook retrieve proof. Detonate lies, finish what Madison started. Fort Belvoir's archive wing feels less like history and more like purgatory fluorescent buzz. Concrete sweating paperwork. Salinas. A man whose uniform cuffs were frayed from decades of hanging folders. Scanned Huxley's signature on my referral and grunted. Drawer 9F slid open. Exhaling stale secrets. Inside. A packet stamped non-authorized delivery Reyes, M, and a microcassette tagged Elizabeth Cole, personal. My heart lurched. 2 ghosts. 1 drawer. I unfolded the Reyes packet first after action sheets, body cam stills, and facsimile of Dad's handwritten order overriding the exfil ink identical to the forged retirement papers. Evidence, yes, but also a blade sharp enough to slice a legacy in half. I tucked it safe, then slipped the cassette into a dusty player Salinas produced like a priest with communion. Mom's voice crackled through static. Weak but vivid Rebecca. If Richard buries you, fight back. Elizabeth House is yours. Don't let fear write our story. My throat tightened. Salinas watched in studied silence. When the tape clicked off, he offered a rare nod soldier's benediction. I left with pockets full of dynamite and a vow brand new Mom's dream would rise on the ashes of Dad's deceit. Twilight draped DC in copper when Avery pinged bad news squared Meredith's PR firm just blasted a second leak. Video montage splicing your Kandahar extraction with unrelated IED footage. They're going nuclear. Rage flashed. Meredith perfect hair stepmother had traded truth for optics. 2 enemies. Same roof. I commandeered a rideshare straight to Harper Lynn's office in Annapolis. The lawyer greeted me with weary eyes and a red wax envelope. Probate hearing moved up. Richard's lawyers petitioned emergency sale of the Loudon property. That land was Elizabeth House's foundation. They weren't just silencing me. They were raising my mother's graveyard of hopes. Harper slid another document across Mahogany Meredith's signature, authorizing the PR smear. Her campaign pack footed the bill. Corruption had a paper trail. And I was holding both ends. We planned through the night legal injunctions, media counterstrikes, congressional liaisons, war by fax, and press release. At 3 a.m., Harper whispered, "Even if we win, scars stay." I answered, "Scars are proof the blade failed." She nodded, tears glassing her eyes. Victory would now require spectacle. Silent truths must learn to scream. Dawn. I found myself outside Dad's Bethesda house with a court-approved search order. The same caretaker who'd polished my childhood trophy shelf unlatched the door without a word. Study unchanged oak. Leather. Dust-coated ambition. The forbidden desk drawer unlocked with a simple flathead. Sometimes the strongest prisons depend on fear. Not steel, Inside Mom's original will. Notarized and sealed. A voice memo USB labeled Last Revision 2015 and folded beneath. The retirement packet template unsigned, blank, waiting for the next family liability. My hands shook, but not from pain, from the realization that generational abuse can masquerade as tradition. I photographed everything, left the originals in evidence bags, and stepped into the hallway just as Richard Cole emerged at the top of the stairs. Bathrobe drawn like a fraying flag. He saw the warrant stamp, the empty drawer, my steady phone camera. For the first time, my father looked genuinely old. "You think destroying me will bring Madison back?" he rasped. "No," I said, voice level. "But it might stop you from destroying the next me." His shoulders sagged, decades of power evaporating in a breath. Still, pity is a luxury victory cannot afford. I turned away, leaving him framed in hallway gloom, king without a kingdom. Back in D.C., news vans ringed Sentinel HQ like vultures. Avery met me at the freight entrance, adrenaline sparking her words. "We have 2 hours before Jason's medal ceremony streams worldwide. If we're dropping the bomb, that's the stage. Perfect public, irrefutable, legacy-shattering. We fused Avery running cables into portable servers, me scripting a reveal video intercutting Madison's letter, Mom's memo, the forged signatures, the AC override metadata, final slide blueprint of Elizabeth House, because some heroes still need a home, as upload bars crawled. I practiced breathing 4 count in, 4 hold, 4 out. PTSD flares obey rhythm. Revenge plots crave timing. At T-minus 30 minutes, Huxley texted a single word. Ready. My pulse synced to the countdown. In 1.8 miles, cameras would roll, brass would applaud, and truth raw and unfiltered would roar through their perfect ceremony, like a missile aimed straight at every lie ever told about me. Curtains rising. Let them feel the blast. The auditorium at Andrews Air Force Base was dressed for triumph rows of starched uniforms, polished brass gleaming, giant LED backdrop looping patriotic montages. A murmur of anticipation rippled when the MC announced, Captain Jason Cole, recipient of the Air Force Cross. In that instant, every camera pivoted to my younger brother striding down the center aisle, jaw squared, medals perfectly aligned. Dad sat front row left, Meredith beside him in a pearl-white suit, both rehearsing smiles for history. They had choreographed every second except the ambush Avery and I were about to launch. Backstage, Avery's portable rig hummed like an anxious heart. The countdown timer on her tablet hit 0. She whispered, "Broadcast patch live." A single keystroke hijacked the LED feed. The flag montage froze. Pixels jittered. And suddenly, Madison Reyes's handwritten letter filled the 40-foot screen. Her words as raw as the day she bled out in my arms. She saved the child. She saved me. If anyone doubts her, show this. Gasps ripped through the hall. Jason stopped mid-step. The color drained from Richard Cole's face, and Meredith clutched her designer clutch like a life vest. General Huxley, already on stage, seized the mic with a command voice that brooked no interruption. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we honor Captain Cole, we must correct the record of another soldier." Behind him, the feed shifted again, side-by-side scans of the forged retirement order and the authentic after-action report. AC override metadata pulsing red like a siren. Huxley's baritone cut through stunned silence. Major Rebecca Cole was forcibly retired under falsified documents. The author of those documents' login credentials, AC Override Legacy 4, belonged to Lieutenant General Richard Cole. Every lens in the room swung to Dad. A ripple of reporters lunged forward. Microphones outstretched. Dad rose, choking on outrage. But the audiovisual barrage rolled on clips of Meredith's PR videos, splicing battlefield chaos to smear my name. Her campaign pack watermark blazing in the corner. Proof. Public and merciless. I walked onto the stage then, no uniform. Just a charcoal blazer and the spinal scar peeking above my collar. Huxley saluted. I returned it. The gesture steady despite the tremor I usually hide. Truth, he said into the mic, is the highest form of service. Applause erupted confused, hesitant, then swelling as soldiers recognized one of their own reclaimed from erasure. Jason stepped toward me, conflict tearing across his features. He reached into his pocket and produced the insignia from our shared childhood shadow box, a battered silver airborne pin. He pressed it into my palm, whispering, I don't know everything, Beck, but I know courage when I see it. His voice cracked, cameras catching every syllable. I closed my fingers around the pin. The metal felt warmer than any metal I'd ever been denied. A bridge between siblings finally built. Security escorted Dad and Meredith backstage for questions. Meredith hissed at him, cheeks blotched, perfect PR mask shattered. Her voice carried just far enough for a reporter's boom mic. I told you we needed control, not more lies. In real time, her investors yanked support across social media tickers. Stock in her consulting firm nosedived. Dad, meanwhile, kept silent, the discipline of command useless against a data storm. As MPs relieved him of his phone pending investigation, I thought I saw the slightest tremor of regret, but maybe it was only the crumbling of a carefully engineered myth. Yet victory, I learned in war, is never clean. Within an hour, the news feed split, half praising whistleblower heroics, half questioning national security leaks. Avery texted from the press pen, reaction, 5D50 trolls mobilizing brace. I nodded to no one, lungs tight. Huxley approached, folder in hand. DOD signed off. He said, your rank restored effective immediately. Distinguished service, cross-recommendation in motion. He added, softer. But reinstatement means subpoenas. Depositions for you and for him. They'll drag you both through mud to see what sticks. I exhaled slow. Let them. Sunshine disinfect. Outside. Hashtags #justice for Beck and #Cole. Cover-up trended alongside, had family feud. Gone nuclear. Harper called emergency probate hearing advanced to 48 hours. Richard's lawyers now argued my public meltdown proved I was unfit to manage Elizabeth House assets. Classic counterstrike if they couldn't erase facts. They'd question my sanity. Harper's voice held steel. We'll need character affidavits, service evaluations, and that cassette from your mother. Can you be in Annapolis by dawn? I glanced at the sea of microphones still waiting in the parking lot. I'll bring more than that, I said. I'll bring public opinion. Avery pulled up in a dented van plastered with Sentinel decals, adrenaline sparkling in her eyes. Phase 2, I asked. She grinned. Oh, we're way past Phase 2. I tunneled into Meredith's PAC servers during the live stream, found invoices proving campaign funds paid for the smear video. I also traced crypto transfers to a consultancy tied to, get this, Gulf War lobbying interests, your dad's old network. I felt a chill. Motive always hides in money. Bundle it, I said. We hand everything to the House Oversight Subcommittee after probate. Avery drummed the steering wheel. Excitement edging on manic. That'll scorch earth. Beck, no coming back for them. I stared at the darkening sky where planes ascended in peaceful arcs orderly. Purposeful, exactly. But first we build something new from the ashes. As we drove, my phone pinged with an unknown number. A single text, don't underestimate a cornered soldier. M. Meredith. Or Richard, doesn't matter. Cornered animals bite hardest. I'd planned for that. Still. The message steeled my focus, Tomorrow's hearing wasn't just about land and money. It was about securing sanctuary for every woman who'd ever been collateral damage to someone else's ambition. Harper once warned scars remain. Tonight, I finally believed scars could also light the path forward. Elizabeth House wasn't charity. It was vengeance repurposed into hope. Midnight slouched across the Capitol dome as we crossed the Potomac. In the back seat, a portable drive whirred audio of Mom's last words. Video proofs, chain of custody logs, the architectural render of a future built on courage. Each bite a bullet in the most righteous arsenal I'd ever carry. I closed my eyes. Picture of Madison, smiling under desert sun, flashing behind lids. We're almost there, I murmured to the ghosts riding shotgun. Beyond the windshield courthouse, lights shimmered, and in them, I saw the outline of the next battlefield: legal, public, unforgiving. Tomorrow I would walk in not as wounded daughter or disgraced officer, but as executor of a mother's dream, backed by the full glare of truth. If Dad wanted a final stand, he'd have to make it on my chosen ground, and I would make sure the whole world was watching when his last fortress fell. Dawn spread pewter light across Annapolis as Harper and I climbed the courthouse steps, our shoes clicking a martial rhythm toward the probate chamber where my family's last facade waited to crack. Inside sat marble columns, rows of press benches already packed, and at council table, Richard Cole in 4-star dress blues, Meredith in widow white sheath, flanked by lawyers whose ties cost more than some soldiers' annual hazard pay. Jason occupied the space behind the bar, neither plaintiff nor defendant, just a son trying to read the truth on two faces he'd trusted all his life. I felt his gaze but kept mine forward. Sympathy was a luxury I couldn't spend before the gavel fell. Judge Hartley, a Vietnam vet, with steely calm opened proceedings. Harper rose first, sliding evidentiary binders onto the podium like grenades. Exhibit A, Mom's notarized 2015 will naming me sole steward of Elizabeth House. Exhibit B, the voice memo where she warned of Richard's interference, her frail timbre echoing through courtroom speakers until even the court reporter wiped a tear. Exhibit C, financial audits, tracing Meredith's PAC money into the smear campaign against me. Gasps washed across the gallery. Credibility snapped like old rope. Harper's closing line. This isn't a fight over acreage, Your Honor, but over whether a dying woman's final wish can be bulldozed by the vanity of those she loved, left the air vibrating. Dad's lead attorney strode up, posture dripping entitlement. He argued I was emotionally unstable, paraded social media snippets of my PTSD episodes, and claimed Sentinel's leak proved I weaponized national secrets for personal revenge. I stayed still, pulse steady, until he produced a psychological evaluation allegedly showing me prone to impulsive aggression. Harper flicked a finger signal. Avery rose from the spectator row, holding a FOI-stamped document. Judge allowed it. Avery's voice cut clear the evaluation was digitally altered. Checksum mismatch. Pages inserted after PDF signing. My father flinched. Meredith's jaw went slack. Lie upon lie, calcified under fluorescent truth. Then Judge Hartley surprised everyone by calling Jason to testify. He hadn't been subpoenaed, but stepped forward, palms visibly sweating. Under oath, he recounted our childhood. Dad's obsession with optics. The night he overheard Richard instructing aides to erase every paper trail that makes Beck look competent. His voice cracked, and the gallery held its breath. At last, he turned to the bench. General Cole taught me loyalty. Your Honor, my sister taught me honor. Today, I choose honor. Across the aisle, Dad's shoulders folded inward, a uniform sinking around a hollow man. The judge recessed for deliberation. Tension buzzed like live wire. I waited in the hallway, staring at framed portraits of Maryland jurists, trying to slow a heartbeat that threatened to break ribs. Dad approached, lawyers trailing, His voice tremored first time I'd heard fear instead of command. "Rebecca, call them off. We can negotiate." I pictured Madison's blood on Afghan dust, Mom's handwriting shaking across cassette tape, my own name drenched in rain beside forged ink. "We're past negotiations," I said. "What you taught me is that silence kills. So, today we speak." He reached as if to grip my shoulder, maybe paternal, maybe pleading, but a marshal stepped between us. The marshal's presence felt like history itself drawing a boundary line that could no longer be crossed. Hartley returned within 20 minutes. Verdict crisp, will of 2015 validated. Control of Elizabeth House and accompanying trust transferred to me, effective immediately. Emergency injunction freezing sale of the property. Referral of forged legal instruments to state prosecutor. Separate referral of falsified military records to the Department of Justice. Applause burst despite protocol. Meredith bolted toward the exit. Reporters swarming. Cameras feeding her meltdown to millions. Dad remained seated, eyes fixed on the bench as if staring long enough might rewind time. When marshals approached with a courtesy notice of impending indictment, he finally stood, saluted the flag on the wall, a gesture stripped of dignity, and walked out, each step echoing like a coffin nail. Outside, sunlight felt heavier than the gavel blow. Jason hugged me wordlessly, and for the first time since Kandahar, I let my armor slip long enough to feel a brother's embrace. Avery shoved a phone between us, breaking ticker DoD formally adopted Sentinel for nationwide deployment. Press release listed Chief Architect R. Cole. No rank, no gender. "They tried to erase you." She grinned. "So I etched you into federal infrastructure." Relief and obligation collided in my chest. Being written into the machine meant living in perpetual scrutiny. But anonymity had already cost too much, I said. Time to use the spotlight for someone besides me. 2 hours later, we caravanned to Loudoun County. The property, once tangled weeds and a sagging colonial shell, awaited rebirth. Volunteers, veterans, local carpenters, even a group of Afghan-American students ringed the perimeter, hard hats blazing yellow against summer sky. Harper unfolded the building permit. Avery rigged a live stream watched by tens of thousands, still riding the story's momentum. I stepped onto a makeshift dais between stacked bricks shipped from Kandahar's demolished forward operating base, the same mud walls that had sheltered Madison's last breath. My voice carried across the lot. "This ground holds every silent story. Today we build a house loud enough to carry them." The crowd cheered as I lifted a sledgehammer and struck the first rusted fence post. Metal groaned, earth vibrated, ghosts stirred. Yet before the roar settled, a text lit my phone. "You won the battle, but battles are cheap. Real wars outlive verdicts. RC." No number, just initials and a GPS ping centered on the Pentagon's cyber division, Dad's old fortress. I handed the phone to Avery. Her smile vanished. "He's got allies inside. If they flip Sentinel against you." Her sentence trailed into the rumble of bulldozers firing up. Victory's edge suddenly felt razor-thin against the prospect of a sabotage that could brand me traitor all over again. I steadied the sledge on my shoulder, eyes on the horizon where thunderheads brewed. The house would rise. But first, I might have to defend the firewall that protects it, and this time the battlefield would be lines of code, not court transcripts. The post thudded into dirt once more, sparks of metal and doubt flying. Somewhere in D.C., a counterstroke was already loading. Storm clouds massed above D.C. as we sped back toward Sentinel HQ. Avery's fingers a blur across her laptop while raw network logs scrolled like hieroglyphs of an impending coup. The GPS ping Dad sent was no bluff. A surge of unauthorized packets was already tunneling into Sentinel's staging cluster from a maintenance node inside Cyber Command, his old kingdom. If the exploit reached production, it could rewrite access tables, lock out my team, and broadcast the narrative that the unstable architect had tampered with national security software. One flip of that switch, and every victory I'd earned would look like premeditated treason. I tasted metal at the back of my throat. Rage, adrenaline, the memory of desert sand ground between molars during firefights. Avery yanked a hard turn onto K Street, van lurching as she patched her phone into the dashboard console. I can isolate the hostile process, but I need root keys. Yours aren't enough. We need Huxley's master cert. My heart pounded. The general was en route to a Senate briefing. Phone likely jammed inside a skiff. Plan B, then beat the exploit at the point of entry. Spin up Cerberus and live intercept mode. We'll mutate a honeypot. Feed them a mirror of our core. Let their script infect the decoy. And trace back every handler ID they touch. Avery's eyes widened. Equal parts fear and thrill. That'll burn the maintenance node and expose anyone piggybacking, including high-clearance insiders. Good, I said. If they want a scorched earth, let's start with their footprints. She hit enter. Servers roared. Inside HQ, the team answered my two-word Slack blast battle stations with military precision. PowerPoints vanished. Coffee cups abandoned. 20 engineers converged on the war room. A horseshoe of holographic monitors now pulsing red. We patched the decoy, mapped ingress points, and watched as a hydra of bot commands latched on. IP after IP lit the tactical display, weaving an ugly constellation between Pentagon subnets and a private cloud registered to Meredith Cole Consulting. My stomach flipped. Dad provided the gate. Meredith supplied the ghost network. The smear was never just defensive PR. It was corporate espionage aimed at capturing Sentinel outright once I was discredited. Jason, looped in via secure call, cursed under his breath. Tell me how to help. Retrieve Dad's physical token, I said. If he swiped in today. That dongle's the smoking gun linking credentials to the breach. Jason hesitated, betray a father twice, then replied. Steel in his voice. On my way. Minutes stretched. The exploit devoured our honeypot exactly as planned. Believing it had breached production, Avery traced the command and control node to a conference room inside Cyber Command labeled Starling. She flipped camera feeds. On-screen, Dad paced alone. Dress blues exchanged for civilian slacks. Paler than I'd ever seen him. No Meredith. No aides. He typed furiously, unaware we were staring back. I felt a pulse of sorrow. He'd gambled every uniformed achievement on one last bid to control the narrative. And now he looked like a relic swallowed by the digital battlefield he never understood. Jason's voice crackled. Got the token. Sending hash now. Avery cross-checked. Hash matched the exploit signature. Chain of custody sealed. I authorized Cerberus to trigger containment isolation. Shutters slammed around Starling node. Alarms blared across the Pentagon. And the screen froze on Dad's face, contorting as he realized someone else now held the kill switch. He lunged for the terminal. Security poured in. Connections severed. War won. But victory felt like shrapnel in the heart. I'd just pulled the last pillar from beneath the man who once taught me how to salute. Fallout detonated fast. DOJ agents executed warrants. Meredith's offices were raided. Senate aides briefed reporters on Operation False Sentinel. My reinstatement transitioned from contested headline to cautionary tale on the dangers of nepotistic power. Yet, amid the chaos, another countdown ticked. Elizabeth House dedication at 0900 next morning. I refused to let sabotage eclipse sanctuary. We worked through the night hammering drywall. Streaming updates. Volunteers painting sunrise orange trim around windows that faced east, toward a day no smear could blot out. At dawn, Jason arrived still in flight jacket, eyes red, token bagged and tagged. Without a word, we hung it inside the house's foyer, a relic of corruption displayed as warning truth lives here. He whispered, I'm transferring to instructor duty. Figure. It's time I teach cadets the cost of silence. I squeezed his shoulder. Sometimes repentance looks like service, not apology. The ribbon-cutting drew media. Lawmakers, rows of women veterans in faded fatigues. Harper read Mom's mission statement. Avery unveiled a plaque etched with Madison's final line. Some lives weigh more than medals. My speech was short, voice rough from sleepless code fighting, but every syllable landed like a drum. This house stands because lies collapsed. If you've ever been overwritten, step inside. The walls will remember your name. Applause rolled. Not thunderous, but steady. Like the heartbeat of something finally made whole. Yet closure arrived only when an elderly Afghan woman stepped forward. A child in tow, the girl I'd carried from rubble 9 years prior. Now bilingual, bright-eyed, safe. She pressed a woven bracelet into my palm. Colors of her village threaded with U.S. flag stripes, and said in halting English, "You saved me then. This house will save others now." My lungs seized, tears blurred battlefield scars. Courtroom lights, code scrolls, everything distilled into that single validation no medal could rival. Night settled gentle for the first time in years. Sentinel's dashboards glowed green secure, sovereign. Elizabeth House windows spilled warm light onto newly laid gardens. I stood alone under the porch lantern, letting silence be comfort instead of condemnation. Dad awaited indictment. Meredith plea bargained. But justice felt less like revenge and more like restoring a balance long denied. Huxley called to confirm Congress would cite Sentinel as model for vet-led innovation. He ended with, "Legends don't need parades, Major. They need successors behind me." Laughter rose from a common room where women shared stories. Unworried their voices might be redacted. I slipped Madison's dog tags into a glass case beside Mom's cassette, turned off the porch light, and whispered, "Rest, I'll keep watch." The camera of imagination pulls back firewall code humming. Construction crews expanding dorm wings. A disgraced general's token rusting behind museum glass. A constellation of lessons spelled in scar tissue and circuits. If betrayal weighed 128 grams, redemption is immeasurable. And should any future tyrant attempt to rewrite histories, they'll find a house, a system, and a soldier ready to stand steady while the world aims again, because courage, once reclaimed, writes its own ending and dares anyone to edit without facing the full power of truth.